This recording will cover chapter 7 in your textbook. It's all about co-teaching. Okay, so today's schools, we've talked about this, very diverse, differ ethnically, socioeconomically, educationally, and require teachers to work with a wider range of students than in the past, right? We've talked about that in some of the other chapters. So we want to think about collaboration, especially you as the special ed teacher. How might you collaborate with the gen ed teacher, with the speech language pathologist, with the occupational therapist, right? So it's not a process, it's more of a way of thinking, a way of planning, a way of sharing, and really a way of working together, right? So we want to think about the fact that, okay, you're one person, right? It's really hard to meet the needs of everybody in your class working by yourself. So think about how you can collaborate with some of the other professionals. And I know some of you are already doing this, but think about collaboration, as you start moving forward. So there's one model called the cooperative teaching model, which is where general and special education teachers work together in the same classroom. Sometimes you'll see this more in the middle or the high schools. Not all districts do this, but I know some places do. Some of you might be doing this now. Team teaching is really a form of cooperative teaching that's been around for a long time, right? Team teaching is two general classroom teachers work together. So you may have seen that, but the cooperative teaching method or model is more of a gen ed and a special ed teacher working together in the same classroom. Some elements of co-teaching: cooperative presence, planning, presenting, processing, problem solving, right? So that the gen ed teacher and the special ed teacher are working together, not that the gen ed teacher is up there teaching and they say to the special ed teacher, oh, I need copies. Can you go to the copy machine and make me copies? Can you go get me some coffee? Can you staple this? That's not co-teaching, right? They are two equal people. The special ed teacher, the gen ed teacher are equals in the classroom, and they should work together on all of these things. It doesn't always happen, but that's kind of, a goal, right, for everyone. Some benefits of co-teaching: better opportunities to monitor students for learning and behavior. There tends to be, research has shown that there's improved academic achievement for students with disabilities, better access to the general ed curriculum, because if you're keeping students in the gen ed classroom, they're going to have better access to that gen ed curriculum with support from the gen ed teacher who, hopefully is a specialist in that content area, but also support from you, the special ed teacher, who might not be a specialist in 8th grade science, let's say, but you have some strategies and some ideas of, and we'll get into those in later chapters, of how to help make that student, and really all students, successful. So there are improved opportunities for teachers to meet the needs of all students. Think about it. If there's two teachers in the classroom equally sharing everything, you're going to have better success to meet the needs of all students, right? The gifted students, the students who are struggling, the students who are identified with disabilities. You're going to have better opportunities for those students. So some negative findings about co-teaching: sometimes it does lead to larger classroom sizes. I know classroom sizes now vary significantly, right, depending on the school and the district you're at. So that's just kind of a question, if you're not in a district or a school right now, that is something to ask about as you start going on interviews. I know some of you are getting ready to do your student teaching, maybe next semester, the semester after. Ask about what kind of co-teaching happens. Ask about the classroom sizes, ask about what kind of planning time you get, stuff like that. And you also want to make sure there is administrative support for this. So some steps to think about before implementing a co-teaching model: it would benefit both people, right, the special ed teacher and the gen ed teacher, if you can attend co-teaching workshops as a team, right? If it's always the special ed teacher going to these co-teaching, professional development sessions, and coming back and trying to tell the gen ed teacher, hey, here's what we should be doing, hey, this is what I learned, it's probably not going to go over well, right? So that's where that administrative support would come in, and the administrator could say, oh yeah, both of you can go attend this professional development, workshop, whatever, together. You need to have a common planning time, the gen ed teacher and the special ed teacher, right? If they are working together truly cooperating and truly collaborating, they need to have a common planning time. Again, put both teachers' names on the board, right? It's not just, oh, I'm the teacher, I'm Miss Georgia, the gen ed teacher. Oh, the special ed teacher, I'm not really sure what their name is. So sorry, I can't remember, right? That's not how it goes. And then that's where you all, as special ed teachers, should become familiar with content standards. You don't have to be an expert in all of them because that's a lot, but you do need to become familiar with the standards. So typically the role of the gen ed teacher would be to provide instruction in the content, right? Remember, we are talking about adolescents, middle school, high school. Provide instruction content. They also need to cooperate with you all, the special ed teachers, right? Otherwise, it's not going to work. They should learn about the different learning needs of the students, and that's kind of where you come in and say, hey, this student really struggles with da, 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 da. Can we break it into smaller pieces? Can we do this? Can we do this? Again, we'll get into those strategies as we get further into I think it starts with chapter 9 is the chapter called Strategies Instruction, and then for the rest of the chapters, they're really specific strategies. And then the gen ed teacher really needs to acknowledge the cooperative relationship with the special ed teacher, right? Again, it's not, oh, I'm the gen ed teacher, I'm the best one in here. No, it's working together. The role of the special ed teacher is being involved in all aspects of the gen ed classroom, planning, instruction, assessment, all of these things, providing suggestions for modifying instructions, and provide specific supports to individual students. So, when co-teaching works, it works really well, right? So I saw when I was in Charleston County, there was a first grade teacher and we, and I know I just said co-teaching tends to happen in the later grades, but we found a way to make it work for her first grade class and my students with autism. It was great. That doesn't always happen, but luckily it did then. And I'm actually still in touch with that teacher, even though I haven't taught in Charleston County in a long time. But some ways to strengthen co-teaching partnership. Planning and instruction assessment, working on all of these things together, right? Like really being partners and really working together. So there are some different co-teaching models. So one of them is teaming. One of them is one teaching, and we're going to talk more about these in just a second. One teaching, one observing, one teaching, one assisting, station teaching, parallel teaching, and alternative teaching. Before we even go on, I'm just going to say my favorite is station teaching. I just love how you can really work with small groups. You can really meet the needs of a lot of students that way. But again, that's just my 2 cents. So teaming, 2 or more people plan, teach, assess, assume responsibility, requires high level of mutual trust. Again, if you don't get along or you don't trust the other person, it's not going to work. There's a challenge because, your teaching style might be different than the gen ed teacher's style, and you really have to find a way to bring those together. And teachers need to feel comfortable and competent with their different roles of leader and supporter. One teaching, one observing. I struggle with this, but I know it happens sometimes. So this is where the one teacher, and it typically becomes the gen ed teacher, right, is the primary teacher, and then the other one, typically the special ed teacher, is primarily the observer. So the observer, and it might be beneficial, right, once in a while if you're really trying to collect data on specific students or specific behaviors, you are going to need someone to observe, right? But it becomes a problem when one person, usually again the gen ed teacher, becomes the primary teacher. If you're supposed to be truly co-teaching and collaborating, that to me is an issue. Again, that's just my 2 cents. The other one teaching, one assisting. This is where one teacher does teaching, the other supports instructional processes, requires little joint planning. So again, this is kind of where the gen ed teacher might think of the special ed teacher as an assistant, which is fine when the special ed teacher is in the role of an assistant, right? If they don't have their degree yet, right? I know some of you are currently assistants, and so that's fine. And that, when for you, but when you have the degree, when you have a teaching certificate, just like the gen ed teacher, that's where this kind of becomes, the assisting teacher might lose, and it should say lose, I didn't type this, lose status as co-teacher, but it is something that can be easily used in most classrooms, right? There's not a lot of joint planning time that has to take place. So the one that I really like, again, is the station teaching. Both co-teachers provide instruction. You might have like 3 different stations. I know it says 2, but hear me out. You might have like 3 different stations around the room where one station's with the special ed teacher, one station is with the gen ed teacher, and then one station might be independent or partner work for your students. I really like this. Instructions delivered differently to both groups. So typically, see, more than two stations may be used. When I did stations when I taught in the Florida Keys, it was just me. My assistant had gotten pulled. There was a whole big reason why. So I was in there with 14 students. It was my first year of teaching. I was in there with 12 to 14 students, all with autism, intellectual disabilities, emotional disabilities, learning disabilities. Back then it was called a cross-categorical class, which we are now calling multi-cap. So I would do stations, but there's only one station with me. So I would have 5 other stations going around, and then the one station would come to me. So they would just rotate and rotate and rotate. It was what I could do with the group of students that I had. But again, there might be more than 2 stations. You might provide. I've always done it when my assistant was in the classroom. He would provide instruction in, let's say, reading mastery or SRA. I would provide instruction in vocabulary or something like that. So we would have different content at the stations, if that makes sense. Parallel teaching, this one's okay as well. I don't hate this one. Class divided, teachers deliver instruction to heterogeneous groups, so kind of the same instruction. So you'll plan it, and then you take one group, and the gen ed teacher takes another group. And here they are not interchanged, whereas in station teaching, in my opinion, they are, like they kind of rotate around, right? But in parallel teaching, it's more group A is over here, group B is over here, and that's how we go. There are numerous models of station teaching. So again, you could split the class evenly. You could do station teaching, rotate groups where the teacher teaches the same topic, rotate groups where the teacher teaches the different topic. That's a lot of words. And you also want to make sure that you're monitoring groups during cooperative learning. So if you think you might end up at a middle school or a high school, talk to teachers there. Find out, is there station teaching? How does it look? What is it, how does it actually work during the day? Okay, variations of station teaching. You can monitor experiment or lab activities, focus on specific learning needs of students, and provide supplementary instruction. Alternative teaching, this is where a small group of students is provided with different instruction. Typically, this tends to be with the special ed teacher will pull and I'm quoting here, the resource kids or the quote special ed kids to the back, right? So it works when you're providing pre-teaching for students with some specific learning needs. It could also be used as enrichment, but it does tend to stigmatize those group members, right? Think about back when I learned to read, there were like, the red birds and the blue birds and the yellow birds. And everybody knew if you were a yellow bird, well, you struggled with reading, right? So you want to think about that and not call attention to those particular students. So the role of the school personnel, paraprofessionals or, assistants serve as members of instructional team, admin, support planning time, professional development, common planning time, right? And then other professionals serve as team members. Some strategies when implementing co-teaching, you need to find teachers who are interested both on the gen ed side and the special ed side, because otherwise, again, it's not going to work. Interested teachers should take some time to get to know each other if they don't already. Again, shared professional development activities, shared beliefs, dreams, visions. They'll need to determine roles and responsibilities and plan for specific opportunities, really thinking about how each teacher's expertise will be used, okay? And then evaluating cooperative teaching, conduct ongoing evaluation, collect information, determine, where the roles perform, nature of interactions, all of those things. And then thinking about, with your team teacher or with your team, pros and cons for continued implementation. Okay, that is it for this chapter. Co-teaching, chapter 7, that is it. Now I will be back with chapter 8.